Welcome everybody to our official Gen Con online Friday night live stream where we're going to go through everything about an overview of the new core sets, the new revised core sets for Shadows of Brimstone, as well as taking a look at a bunch of the new items that we're coming out with this fall and a little bit beyond. So kind of giving a glimpse of the production schedule and what's going to be releasing and when. So, without further ado, let's talk about Shadows of Brimstone revised core set. So, Jason, why? Why would we do a revised core set? What's the deal? Why? What's the plan?
We didn't. We are doing 2 revised core sets.
Oh, well then that answers all of my questions.
Clearly.
Yeah.
No, it's been a good 5, 6, 7 years since we put out the first Shadows of Brimstone core set, City of the Ancients and Swamps of Death. And we've learned a lot from the different expansions that we've released over the years and the community feedback. And we've had a lot of FAQs and errata and ideas for polishing and balancing everything over that time. And we thought, this would be a great time to go ahead and integrate all of those FAQ points and changes and tweaks and erratas to help make the game better and integrate those into a new release for a revised edition of both City of the Ancients and Swamps of Death. And we've talked a little bit about it yesterday, but we can go over more of the details now here, which I believe is what this video is mostly about. The brand new miniatures. Both of the core sets have completely new sets of miniatures for both the heroes and all of the enemies. And we really wanted to go back and, the first Shadows of Brimstone core set miniatures that we did were the very first hard plastic miniatures on frames that we had ever done. And so we were kind of cutting our teeth, figuring it out. And over the last, like I said, 5, 6, 7 years, we've learned a lot about the process and have been working with different factories to really refine everything. And so these new miniatures, I think, are some of the best that we've produced to date. They tend to be in fewer pieces. They have better proportions. They have really crisp detail. And it's just a really solid set of figures for both City of the Ancients and Swamps of Death. And it makes them as cool as they should be, as they deserve to be.
So what I can do is show the sprues over here, but then showing them assembled will switch to a different camera that'll be close up. So we'll do that after all of this stuff, okay? So we'll start with actually some of the new, let's look at the new enemies for Swamps of Death. Does this come across okay?
So yeah, you can see here the miniatures for Swamps of Death. There's the slasher in the upper left-hand corner. There's the 2 hellbats in the upper right-hand corner, and you see the hellbats are just in 2 pieces there, so it's the wings and the body. The 2 tentacles, and lastly the 4 hungry dead, and you can see there's 3 different poses, for the new hungry dead. And so in the box you actually get 3 of this sprue, so you'd get 3 slashers, 6 hellbats, 6 tentacles, and 12 hungry dead.
And as a side note, the tentacles, actually there's one new sculpt of tentacle. So before we had 3 different tentacle poses, but we're like, what if we could add a 4th? And we always try to do as much as we can if possible. So there's actually now 4 tentacle poses. So there's 2 different poses, A and B, in City of the Ancients, and then 2 different poses from those even, C and D, in Swamps of Death. And so if you have both sets, then there's actually 4 different unique tentacle poses across your 12 tentacles, 6 from each set.
So that covers the medium-sized monsters and
there's more. The
large-sized monster. Oh, the Hungry
Dead have some options.
That's true.
So there's a specialty Hungry Dead. I don't know if this is going to come across if I get in closer. Let's see, like this. So this right here is the Prospector Hungry Dead. And he is not only really cool, but he's got a hole right through him, which we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do, but we worked with China and we were able to pull it together. Here is the Saloon Girl Hungry Dead, She looks so detailed and so good. Really awesome. And then this guy right here is kind of the generic pose. And because he's not a prospector or a cool saloon girl Hungry Dead, we wanted to give him some options. So when you're putting them together, we actually have 3 different arms, and the arms are posable. And so when you're putting these big groupings of Hungry Dead, you get 12 in the box. When you're putting them together, you have they'll look different. You'll have variety across your groupings of Hungry Dead. So, should we move on?
Yeah. Why don't we take a look at the heroes?
All right.
From Swamps of Death. So the heroes are probably one of the biggest differences amongst all of the new miniatures in that they have much higher detail. They have more heroic proportions, and they're not quite as slight figures. So they tend to be a lot cooler with their new poses and new proportions. And so in the Swamps of Death set, you have your classic 4 heroes for that set. You have the Preacher, you have the Lawman, you have the Rancher, and you have the Indian Scout. And I think one of the biggest changes of any of the heroes across both of these sets is the Preacher. You can see he's in a much more action-oriented stance, holding up a crucifix to push away the foul undead that attack your heroes. Yeah, so you can see he's holding the holy book in one hand, and he's got a cross in the other hand with his big wide-brimmed hat, and he's sort of keeping the undead at bay with his cross. But the Indian Scout is also a pretty big change from the original miniature, and you can see he's in a more action-oriented pose where he looks like he's getting ready to hack at something with the hatchet. And then the big monster from Swamps of Death, of course, is the Harbinger. And so he still has his giant wingspan and his terrifying demonic look. But one of the things we were able to do with the new epic enemies, the big XL-sized enemies, is that both the Goliath in City of the Ancients and the Harbinger in Swamps of Death actually have a base topper as well. And that's a new piece for the figure. So he basically stands atop a big pile of rocks and skulls that you can glue onto the base, and it elevates him up a little bit and makes him look more menacing as the big epic threat that he is.
So we'll keep going here. Should we look at
Yeah, let's take a look at the miniatures
Ancients?
from City of the Ancients.
So these are City of the Ancients figures, and
so here we have the regular size medium enemies and the large enemy. So in the upper left corner we have the Night Terror. In the upper right we have the 4 Void Spiders, which are all single piece. Below that we have the Tentacles, which are also single piece. And beside that, in the lower left, we have the new versions of the Stranglers, which also are single piece. No more worrying about getting twisted tentacles on your Stranglers. These guys come out as one piece, and you can just glue them on their base, and they're ready to start terrorizing your heroes. So all of these figures, we tried to get in as few pieces as possible, but to keep all the dynamic poses and the good high detail that we've been working toward. The next frame we have here is the sprue of heroes for City of the Ancients. And so you can see again, it's the classic City of the Ancients lineup of 4 heroes. You have the U.S. Marshal, the Gunslinger, the Bandito, and the Saloon Girl. And so you can see they're, again, in very dynamic poses with really high detail, and their proportions are a little bit more heroic. They're a little bit stockier and have bigger limbs, bigger heads, bigger guns to get a little bit better detail when you assemble and paint your figures. And one thing that's pretty cool with that frame is that the Bandito actually has 2 different arm variants. So you can choose for his secondary arm if you want to put on the second pistol to make him more of a twin guns Bandito, or if you want to put on the dynamite arm so that he's more ready to throw dynamite from his dynamite satchel. So it gives you some options of how you want to put your figure together for the Bandito. And then, of course, last but not least for this City of the Ancients set is the powerful Goliath. And so you can see he's a little chunkier, a little thicker and heavier set, and ready to deal out all sorts of damage to your heroes with his flailing tentacles. And he also has a large base topper that he sits atop that has a broken wagon wheel and barrel and a bunch of rocks to make him a little bit elevated and more of an epic-looking threat for your heroes to fight.
You want to hand me the painted one?
Sure. He also has some little darkstone crystals popping up out of his base topper, so you can get get the sense that he's kind of protecting a little horde of darkstone behind him. So that's a quick overview of the new miniatures from both of the two core sets. One of the things that's important to note with these revised core sets is that although we really wanted to make sure that we redid the miniatures so that they were really high quality and the best miniatures that we've produced to date, which is really important for the core set, so it's really good for a new entry point for new players or for veteran players alike. But we also went back and took the opportunity to do a polish pass and a rebalance pass on pretty much every aspect of both of these core sets. So every card was touched. You can see, Scott can show some of the the box back images. So you can see, the new minis and some of the new cards and whatnot there. But we went back and added set icons to both of the sets. So City of the Ancient cards are now all marked with the City of the Ancients icon. Swamps of Death cards are all marked with the Swamps of Death icon. So it's easier to sort them and separate them into your collections or between games if you want to sort out what came in City, what came in Swamps, and whatnot. But also doing a polish pass and a balance pass meant that we got to go back and readdress some of the things that we thought would make the game a better experience. So, for instance, there was a full rebalance pass on all of the hero starting upgrades and all of the hero skill trees. And so, in that, most of the skill trees and starting upgrades got some change of some sort. And a lot of that was to make sure that instead of there being a more obvious choice of, clearly the swindler bandito is the way to go, or, clearly the dirty fighting saloon girl is the way to go, which a lot of times we got that feedback over the years where people felt like maybe it was harder to use certain starting upgrades than others. We went back and found ways to make the other ones more attractive, more competitive for which starting upgrade you might want to choose.
Do you want to talk about the books? We separated out the rule books.
Yeah, so one of the cool changes for these forthcoming revised editions is that we decided to go back. Previously, City of the Ancients and Swamps of Death both shared one rule book, and then they had individual adventure books. And so one of the things that meant was that it was easier for them both to have the same rule book because the rules are the same between both sets. But any of the rules that were specific to a set, like the rules for the preacher casting sermons or the rules for the gunslinger using his 6-shooter template, meant that those rules had to be pulled aside in the adventure book. And so it always seemed a little strange to have the rules split into two different areas. And so by creating a unique rule book for each of the two sets, it meant that we could unify and pull all of those rules into one book. So we have a City of the Ancients rulebook now, which includes all of those rules for having target pylons and void venom for the spiders if they have elite abilities or whatnot, or the 6-shooter template. Basically, pulls all those in, so it's in the City of the Ancients rulebook. That also meant that the page count for the rulebook got a little bit longer, but we got to use those pages in the adventure book to add some new material like painting guides for all of the heroes and all of the enemies that come in that set.
We have a few questions
that
we'll go through. So Robert Birkland says, are the tiles the same?
So the short answer to that is yes, the tiles are the same. There are a few minor tweaks here and there where the walls got clarified on doorway areas, so it was more obvious if the wall was meant to block off moving diagonally or not. But those are pretty minor tweaks, and it's not really things that change it. It's more just making it clearer. So if it before was right on the line, now it's clearly over the line or clearly not over the line, so that it's easier to understand the intent of whether you can move around that corner or not.
Nathan Jepson said the Redemptionist shotgun is awesome. I think that we didn't really show anything that would indicate that, so I'm guessing that he played with it. We have all the demos or the game sessions that we're doing as part of Gen Con Online are using the new revised Corset versions, so he probably actually played the Nun.
So the new revised Corset, hero character sheets and starting cards, starting upgrades, the revised version of the enemies and whatnot. So yeah, the Redemptionist shotgun definitely probably got the single biggest boost in the entire game. Originally, if you take the Redemptionist starting upgrade for the Preacher, you basically would get a regular shotgun, and you could use two-handed guns. But over time, it became pretty clear that that was a really fun thematic option, but was a little bit underpowered when it compared to the other two starting upgrades for the Preacher, because it really handicapped your spellcasting, and also you weren't very accurate with the shotgun. And so the Redemptionist shotgun specifically got a lot more powerful. It now replaces the Holy Book, so it doesn't give you the +1 combat that the Holy Book would, but it does give you a +1 faith now, so you have just as much faith for casting power as you would with the other two. Also, the stats on the Redemptionist shotgun do quite a bit of damage. Your to hit is still very bad with the Preacher or the Nun, but when you do get a hit in, it actually does 2d6 damage. So you can really blast stuff to smithereens with your Holy Wrath if you're a Redemptionist Preacher or Redemptionist Nun at this point.
We have Thomas Gonzalez is asking, is there the 6 attack limit from the FAQ? That made a lot of stuff like pistol fanning not really work.
That is a good question. So there actually is a change to that. We did work in most of the FAQ points in the erratas into the rulebook and the adventure book where it was appropriate. So that was part of the polish pass on polishing up the main rules and wanting to make these as much the definitive rulebooks as possible. The 6 cap limit for the hero attack dice, it's very nitty gritty, but I can jump in there. The 6 dice limit has actually been changed, so it is now an 8 dice limit on the hero attack limit. There's no special dispensation for using badges or things like that. Most characters, even with a badge giving them extra dice, really should not be going above 8 dice when they attack. The things that do allow you to go beyond it is any attack dice that are specifically at a particular enemy don't count in the limit. So if you have an ability where it does one attack die, one combat die or 1 or 2 against every adjacent model or against a specific adjacent model, that doesn't count as part of the attack dice limit. And the reason that attack dice limit got in there in the first place was to rein in hero power creep a little bit. We would hear stories of characters getting to roll 10, 12, 14 dice on an attack, which really gets things out of hand and makes the game a lot less exciting when it's easier to steamroll with higher level heroes. So by introducing that attack dice cap, a lot of heroes will never see it, and heroes that do, it just reins in their power level a little bit.
Brian Aslan is asking, are there any new cards/items?
There are, in fact, some new cards/items. So some of the new cards, there are a few new cards that got in there. There's a couple of new artifacts for the Swamps of Jargono and Swamps of Death. There's a couple of new artifacts for the Targa Plateau in City of the Ancients. There's also a couple of new encounters that are in there for the mine in both of the sets, and for the Targa and Jargono in each of the sets.
Someone was also asking about tokens. Are there changes to the tokens?
There definitely are some changes to the tokens. Mostly it's adding additional tokens that make sense for those sets, and for some of the polish and balance changes that went on in this revised edition. So for instance, some of the items that were previously just items in the town are now side bag tokens, like the Darkstone Shiv that the Saloon Girl can get from the Saloon Troop in town. Those were previously just items, and now those are actually side bag tokens. So it helps to better define how you get them, how many you can hold, when you can use them, and all that. Another example is the vial of brimstone ash in the church location in town. That used to just be an item, and now that's a side bag token. So not only are those changes in the town location charts, but there's also counters included for those as side bag tokens. We also put in new counters for the alt gender versions of the characters. Originally, it just had tokens for the main genders of the heroes that come in the box. But one of the points of feedback we got over the years was that people really wanted to have both genders of token for the different characters that came in each of these boxes. So along with those, there's a few other things here and there. We put in some counters for like the harmonica, which is something you can get in town. We could put in a couple tokens for the specimen jar that you can get at the doctor's office. So
one side's empty and the other side's full.
Yeah, one side's empty, the other side has a little tentacle in it. So basically, when you get a specimen jar, you can have the token there, and then when you fill it in another world, you can flip it over, so when you go back to town, you're ready to turn it in and get a payout from the dock. So things like that. Also, we added Hellfire tokens for the Preacher in Swamps of Death. It's something that in the original set, it basically just said you can use whatever token you want to represent Hellfire tokens, but we added Hellfire tokens in the Caverns of Cinder. And we thought, it'd be really cool if we could squeeze in a way to have Hellfire tokens actually fully there to represent in the new revised core sets.
I think in the end, nearly every component was touched. It's not just like the exact same thing with some new miniatures.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and somebody asked a question of, will there be revised editions of other content as well? And I think that's a really important question, and the really important answer is no, because it's meant to just kind of bring this up to speed and make a really nice, solid core set experience for people, so that when they start the game, they have a solid foundation to start with. But it's not meant to be like, here's a second edition, and so you have to buy everything else again or something like that. Everything is completely 100% compatible with this. There's no major change that makes anything no longer valid. Everything is
It's really just
totally
a polish and rebalancing pass on these two core sets to make them really solid entry points into the game.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, we started with these core sets, and it was our first foray into doing miniatures with the HIPS plastic, it's called, where it's like, miniatures on sprues, hard plastic, all that. Miniatures that you have to assemble, miniatures that you paint, things like that. And I think that, our first outing, it went pretty well. But since then, we've gotten better and better at this. We found a different factory to work with to do the miniatures. They have really higher quality. And then we started taking on more and more of the duties of, cutting down the miniatures into the component parts, controlling the pegs and how they assemble, even how they're placed on the sprue and where the sprue connects to the actual pieces. So these are all really important steps that we've taken over the years. And so our miniatures have been getting, better and better and better. And so it just became more and more obvious that the core sets were like older and older and older looking, based on how cool the newest miniatures are. So this will bring them up to speed, and because they're our newest ones, they're actually some of our best miniatures, which is what you want. You want to put your best foot forward.
We definitely know that people are interested in wanting to be able to get access to the things that are new and different. So much is new and different in these sets that it's definitely a worthwhile thing to get the entire set all together. But beyond that, we are going to make available on our website the ability to get the sets of the new miniatures as a separate item. We don't have the pricing on these things just yet, but we will probably in the very near future. And then as far as the printed material goes, we have put together an upgrade kit where we've basically gone through and found all of the pieces, all the components that are specifically mechanically different. So, because every card, pretty much every component of the game was looked at, reassessed, polished a little bit, that means a lot of wording's changed slightly. That means a lot of, icons might have changed, or, different elements of the cards or different elements of the town locations or the enemies. A lot of those things may have been tweaked here and there. Now, if it's mechanically different, so it's literally, it used to be 2 and now it's 4 or something like that. That's mechanically different. It changes the way the game plays. That means it's going to be in the upgrade kit that we've put together for printed material. If it is just a different wording, so it is more consistent across all the different expansions, so that things are worded the same,
or we added the set icon.
Yeah, or we corrected typos, or we added the set icon, or whatever it happens to be that doesn't change gameplay, those things are not going to appear in the upgrade kit for the printed material.
And we had to do this because otherwise the upgrade kit would basically just be the whole box.
Right.
So we just tried to pare it down to the mechanically different things, and of course this went across normal size game cards, the larger stat cards for enemies and heroes,
Yep.
the XL cards that you get for town
locations.
adventures and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's across all of those for the printed material. The upgrade kit will contain some XL cards, some large cards, some game cards, a big brick of game cards, and then also even a die-cut counter sheet that includes a lot of those new counters that Jason was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of a big set. Again, we don't have a price point yet.
We don't have the pricing or the time frame yet, but it'll be something that'll be available on the website that you can watch for over sometime in the next couple of months, I would say. And
we're going to try to get as close to the retail release of the Shadows of Brimstone revised core sets as possible, because obviously we don't want people sad because I I have a huge collection and I'm getting the upgrade kit. I don't have it, whereas some new guy off the street has his brand new shiny fancy revised core set. And, so we'll do our best to try to get it out as close to the same time as possible.
And it's in manufacturing right now, so it's just a matter of them finishing doing all the printing and sorting and boxing and getting it out to us in a reasonable time frame.
So the upgrade kit itself will be printed material for both, and then you can also get sets of just the miniatures for Swamps of Death or just the miniatures for City of the Ancients. Those are not going to be available in retail. Those are going to be on our web store.
They're also going to be in very limited quantities. So if you're interested in getting those, you should not wait. You should get them as soon as they become available, because they'll only be available for a limited time based on doing this single print run of that upgrade kit.
Yep. So, you know what? This is not simply a broadcast talking about Shadows of Brimstone revised core sets, but also what is beyond the revised core sets. The first new release post revised core set. Here we go. Look at this.
So this here is an alt-gender hero pack for the Swamps of Death heroes, where it's the alt-gender heroes in plastic. And there's going to be a set of each of these, one for the Swamps of Death heroes in the alt-gender versions in plastic, and one for the City of the Ancients heroes, alt-genders in plastic. And when we decided we wanted to put these sets together, we thought it would be really cool to actually have them include all of the hero character sheets and all of the cards and any counters needed to be able to play those heroes in your games of Shadows of Brimstone. So when you get one of these alt-gender sets, it means not only that you can use the miniature for that alt-gender hero, but you can also add an additional copy of that hero to your adventures. Or if you just have one core set, you could get the alt-gender set of miniatures for the other core set that you don't have, and actually have those heroes that you can throw into your games and be playing with right away.
So it's basically a big hero pack.
Yeah.
With 4 new heroes and all of the cards necessary to play.
All the cards, all the counters you need for those heroes. And those are all of the cards, and it also includes the skill trees for those heroes, and a rule page for those heroes that tells anything you need to know about preachers casting sermons for the nun, or the 6-shooter template for the female gunslinger. And so those sets are
$31.95 MSRP, and the slated release is for October of 2020. And that's not the only one of them. We also have the one for the City of the Ancients.
Yeah, and so these are all plastic figures, and they turned out really, really great. The miniatures on these look really fantastic. All of the cards and components in these sets are the same ones in the revised core sets, as far as the skill trees for the heroes and the new starting upgrades, starting gear and all of that good stuff. So I think people are really gonna enjoy having easier access to these characters. The other thing that's really exciting about these miniatures is not only is the detail amazing and the sculpts are beautiful with fantastic proportions. I believe virtually every single one of these alt-gender heroes is a single piece figure. So even though they keep really dynamic poses and have incredible detail, they're very easy to assemble in that you clip them off the frame, glue them to their base, and you're off to the races. You're ready to go diving into the dungeon and or into the mine in this case, and start having your adventures straight away. I think the only exception to the single piece is the Bandita, who has an optional hat that you can glue onto her back. So she has her hat slung down on her back if you want to add that on. But other than that, they're all single piece with really, really good detail and really good proportions on those characters.
Yeah, the details on these turned out great. They're just fantastic. And so we're very excited to finally have these guys in plastic. And it's not just plastic versions, but we also actually redid them from scratch, just like we did with the core set heroes. All right, so moving along, there's another one. This one I think people are going to be very excited about.
This is the new Deluxe Depth Track expansion, and it's a brand new, very high detail, chunky plastic depth track with plastic rings for the Hero Posse marker and the Darkness marker. And it also comes, much like the Doorways into Darkness or the Gateways into Madness set, this actually comes with a small 15-card mini supplement in the box with it that have a bunch of new cards for Growing Dread, for Darkness, Encounters, and some new gear. And most of those cards involve the Darkness marker, the Hero Posse marker, or the Depth Track in some capacity. And so you get really cool stuff like a railroad spike that you can stick in and discard to prevent the Darkness marker from moving on the track. Or there's one where the heroes are being stalked by the Darkness, and one of the heroes whatever hero is the highest level suddenly is being specifically hunted because he's wanted by the Lost Marshals. And so all enemies get extra bonus damage against that character for the rest of the adventure because they know that you're the most dangerous, deadly hero around in the posse. So I think people are really going to like that new set with the plastic deluxe depth track. That one has a MSRP of $24.95, and it is also slated for release in October 2020.
All right, so I think finally here we'll go over kind of forecasting further out into the future to show other releases that are upcoming.
Yeah, over the next several months.
Yeah. So here we are. So first off, you've got this
Deluxe Depth
Track, the alt-gender heroes for Swamps of Death, alt-gender heroes for City of the Ancients. These are all in October. And then next up, we've got Magma Fiends.
Yeah, for the Caverns of Cinder. And they're a fun new enemy set that chews through rock walls, spews lava, and adds lava markers to the board as they go. They can actually chew up new exits for map tiles as they come out to attack your heroes.
As they cinder form.
That's right, as they cinder form the mines to be more like their magma-filled homeworld of the caverns.
So next up is going to be the Bone Eaters.
The retail release for the Bone Eaters enemy
Fortress.
Set. Forbidden Fortress enemy. And those were also part of the Forbidden Fortress Kickstarter, but they're a really fun new enemy if you haven't gotten to see them yet, where they are blind enemies that use their sense of sound and hearing to be able to track down the heroes, and they use noise markers. So as the heroes make noise, moving around or attacking, they basically will get bonuses to their defense and bonuses to their attacks against the heroes that make the most noise and collect the most noise markers. It also means that if your characters are particularly stealthy and quiet, you can actually sneak around between them and past them to get by them without alerting them to your presence. So it gives you an alternate way to potentially sneak past these enemies unless somebody makes a noise, steps on a twig and makes a crack, or kicks some rocks, and suddenly they all turn and know exactly where you are and come after you to feed on you.
And then, of course, next up would be Temple Dogs.
Yeah, the Temple Dogs are a fun enemy for the dragon army, where there's stone lions that have basically come to life and are sent out in packs to hunt down the heroes.
And we have versions of these in other worlds as well.
That's true. So those can be found in the Forest of the Dead and in the Caverns of Cinder, as well as in the regular threat deck.
And then, so this is forecasting out several months, but then we've got here Void Swarms and Void Hives.
Yeah, we had a small limited run preview of these last year, and so now they're actually getting ready to go for their retail release. The Void Swarms and Void Hives have giant nest-like hives that spawn these Void Swarms to come out and attack you, and they can actually block line of sight as they move around in these hovering clouds of Void Swarms. And then the Shikari Nomads are a group of characters that come from a world that's been completely destroyed by Darkstone, and so they're basically fanatical zealots trying to hunt down and wipe out all Darkstone across space and time, and try to hunt down mutants that have been contaminated by the Darkstone. So they're kind of fanatical soldiers that, if you are keeping it clean and don't have any mutations or Darkstone, when you encounter them, they can actually give you some gear to help you in your fight against the Darkstone, and then move along rather than actually fighting them. So they're a lot of fun. They're a really cool group of enemies to encounter in your adventures.
All right. So that's basically kind of the forecast of things coming out. It's not necessarily everything, because we haven't made specific announcements yet of the dates of these or the exact releases of stuff. So you may even see one or two things that we haven't shown here. We like to have some surprises.
That's true.
It's just our nature.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow.